Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another week of the 19th hole presented by In Between Media. I am Nate Palvo, and I am here with my friend Connor. Connor, how are you tonight, buddy?
Good, man. How you been?
Oh, busy, but good, man. Very good. So
yeah, you do a little bit of football or something.
Just a little, just here and there. I did a few. I did a couple of shows for the draft. Nothing big.
Oh, there was a draft.
There was a draft. Yeah. It was kind of a thing, So
did you guys get Aaron Rodgers yet?
Oh God, please. That would be. I mean, I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers than go into the season with Teddy Bridgewater, Andrew Luck, obviously. So, oh man, yeah, it was a wild weekend. But we're not here to talk football, man. We're here to talk bourbon and golf, specifically about the Wells Fargo Championship this weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll get to that here in a little bit. First, Connor, tell us a little bit about your background in spirits tastings and talk about maybe a little bit about the bourbon we're going to taste tonight.
Yeah, so my day job is primarily selling spirits. Gone through several international wine and spirits certifications, so pretty well qualified to talk about it. Tonight, as most nights that we're going to do, kind of Nate and I's focus will be finding everyday bourbons that you can pick up whenever, and we're going to try to stay under about a $35 price point. Some of them people have heard of, some of them you won't, but for the most part, they're all easy to find. So that's kind of our goal. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about Maker's Mark, which is one of my go-tos. I mean, yeah, it always got a bottle on hand.
Always.
And I like all varieties of makers. I like base makers. I like 46. I like their cask strength. I've had a bunch of their private selections. They're all just fantastic.
The 46 is good. 46 is really good.
Yeah, 46, like hands down, probably one of my favorite things to put in an old fashioned. I love the flavor profile of the way it holds up. It's fantastic. Little higher than the price point we're going for, so we went base, but
unless you shop at Costco. If you shop at Costco, you can get it for like $40 for a handle. So
I've got to go shopping with you.
Yeah, you do.
Maker's Mark, though, I think is just one of those. It's one of those bourbons that for me is exactly what I like, and to maybe to an extreme. I really don't care for rye. This is a bourbon that has no rye in it. It's typically aged about 6 to 7 years. It's always bottled at about 90 proof, which we've talked about in other past episodes. It's kind of what I'm starting to find is more my sweet spot. I don't need it to burn from tongue to toes.
Right.
And so, just knowing up front that there is no rye in this guy, that was a primary differentiator, especially back in the 50s when this distillery got up and running. So it is distilled down in Loretto, Kentucky, which is kind of near Louisville. As memory serves me, and I'll talk about this a little bit because I've been to this distillery and it's incredible. But as memory serves me, it's probably about 35 plus minutes to get out there from Louisville. It is part of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, which is, obviously every distillery you can think of. But, right. And like I said, it's still on the same property that it was started on. They're a self-sustaining property. They've got their own water source, which is also slightly unique down in that part of the world. There's quite a few of them that do, but these guys have basically natural filtration that occurs. Water going over limestone eliminates all the iron from the water and just gives the water a little cleaner, crisper taste. And it also doesn't impact the whiskey at all.
Right.
So that coupled with the mash bill, you get a completely unique flavor. And the red winter wheat that's in this, that's kind of getting back to the mash bill here, where we've got the corn, the barley, and that wheat. The wheated part of the bourbon really makes it sweeter. You really don't get a lot of that pepper bite that you do from some other bourbons that have some rye in the mash bill. So that's kind of the uniqueness there. Couple of things that are unique with the bottling itself. So when Bill Samuels founded Maker's Mark back in '53, his wife Margie, who's the only woman she's the first woman to be inducted into the Bourbon Hall of Fame kind of wanted a bottle that would stand out from the crowd. Like they had decided they had this formula to make the juice stand out from the crowd, but they wanted the bottle to. And that's kind of where the iconic red dip comes from. So, and over the years, they've done a bunch of different colors commemorating different stuff down in Kentucky. Those bottles are super cool if you can find them.
I used to have, I think I still probably have somewhere. I save all my bourbon bottles. If they're a cool bottle, like I have a bunch of Blanton's bottles that I saved. But this one in particular, because it was the red, white, and blue one for 4th of July. That was a really cool one. It was triple dipped. Yeah, that's really neat. That's a cool thing. And like that was one of the things that drew me to it in the beginning. Well, first of all, my great grandmother, who lived to be 104, said she had one spoonful every day, and she had this big ladle that she'd show you when she told you that, of Maker's Mark specifically. But the red dipping, like that's just such a neat thing that makes it feel higher end than maybe it is, I would say.
Well, one of her quotes when they first launched was something, I can't remember it verbatim, but something to the effect of we look expensive because we are, or something like that. Like it was just like trying to luxurize like what they were doing, which again at the time was pretty unique from the rest of the marketplace.
I mean, honestly though, what was the marketplace back then? Jack Daniels and Jim Beam.
Well, I mean, you still had your small. You still had.
That's true. Okay, that's true. Sorry to sidetrack.
Because we're talking. No, I mean, but we're talking the 1950s, not the 1850s. So I mean, true. There was still a fair amount of established stuff, but everybody was kind of following the same basic idea. I mean, Jack Daniels was going to be a little different because they had their their Lynchburg style and their sour mashing, all that stuff. So. And we'll do Jack on another episode because I think it's a unique one that we should touch on. But anyway, so this was just kind of going a little bit against the grain. Now there were other wheated bourbons around that time too, but just a unique profile for this one. And like I was saying though, I mean, so she came up with a couple of hallmarks. Like she wanted to do the wax dipping, which was obviously draws your attention right to it. She wanted to have. If you look at just below the neck of the bottle, the kind of raised stamp on there, so that she wanted to have kind of a homage to her family and the distillery itself. So the S on the label stands for Samuels, which is obviously their last name. The 4 represents them being a fourth generation distiller, and then the star represents their home. Like, so it's Star Hill Farms, which is where the family resides. So kind of a cool little bit of knowledge on that, because not everybody probably knows what that emblem means.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Store that one away for trivia night at the bar.
I will.
So that's kind of a cool little tidbit about that. And then couple other things just about the property. The property is super sprawling. Like when I walked up, you've got like the visitor center up on the hill, and then you kind of walk down this hill to some of the rick house areas and the actual like double pot distillery portion. And it's all old school, old timey looking. And like I said, their water source actually like babbles like through the property. Like you have to walk over the creek a couple of times as you're on tour.
That's really neat.
It's super cool. And then they've got all these really like cool details as you're going through the place. Like when you get down into some of the cellars, like they have these enormous stained glass ceilings that run over you when you're in like some of the barrel rooms.
Wow.
And then my favorite part was you get down to where they do private selections, and you're in what literally looks like a cave. And there's just maybe probably 40, 50 barrels just kind of laid out aging. And that's behind awesome. You is this like glass cage, and in this glass room is this giant Knights of the Round Table style table where they actually do their private selections, and up on the wall is every single bottle that's ever been private selected cataloged in there. It's just like little things like that where you're just like speechless looking at all the history.
And it shows the amount of care they put into what they make.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, 100%. And like some of the, I mean, like even their barrel program, like they've found a way to be very unique. Like they do their base private selection is Maker's 46. It's usually around 100 proof is what the private selections are, maybe a little higher in some cases. But then what they've done is they've allowed you to take 5 hand selected barrel staves and put them into the center of the barrel with different chars and different types of woods, so that as that juice continues to mature, it's absorbing some of the flavors from the other staves that have been added inside the barrel. So you have like something like 1,000 different possibilities. You'll never have the same private selection. Yeah, it's really cool.
That's really, really cool. Wow.
Yeah. So if you ever see a private selection, they're spendy, but like when people are out looking for that one-off bottle you'll never have again,
there you go.
That's
absolutely
as good as you're going to do. So as far as the actual stuff that we're tasting, so for me, this is definitely on the sweeter end of the spectrum. I get generally a pretty strong sweet nose.
Same.
For me, it's really, really vanilla-y. A little bit of honey. And a lot of times I think that weed is what presents to me as like honey.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's the first time I've ever picked up on the honey with it, but the vanilla, I've always noticed that.
Yeah, it's really strong. I mean, really, being on the sweeter end of the spectrum. And then the other piece too that not a lot of people get, but I always say it, is after you take a sip, if you kind of exhale before you completely swallow, I always get like peanut, like hard shelled peanut, like very earthy, like peanutty type of flavors, which I love, but sometimes some people don't.
Yeah, I could kind of. Yeah,
if you go through your nose.
Yep. Interesting. See, this is why we need people like you, because it makes drinking completely different. Like it's kind of like, I want people to look this like people go wine tasting and you go to these tasting rooms and the person who's hosting your tasting is walking you through the different flavors, but it doesn't just have to be wine. I mean, bourbons are complex, vodkas can be complex, all of these different spirits. And we're talking about like, you sip on it.
Yeah. And again, in keeping with the theme of what we want to do with any spirit that we're presenting on the show, is it like, this is a bottle that you could walk in, pick up and not feel bad about messing around with it. Like you could try it in a cocktail, you could try it,
right.
You're not going to feel bad. It's not $100 bottle, but it's as good as some of those.
Right. We're not going to do laws probably.
Right.
As much as I would love to, probably not going to do it. But
I've had some crazy stuff over the years that like, it's just like, you don't even want to put so much as you don't want to breathe on it.
That's how I felt about the first bottle that Jen gave me of Blanton's. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. I was like, I guess I'm just never going to drink it. And then like a week later, of course, it was completely gone, but because that's how it goes.
And I've been really lucky with Blanton's too. I've gotten quite a few like tastes on like some single barrel selections that are a little different, unique, but there's some really good ones out there. Final thoughts on this guy though. Again, it's going to be a lot more sweet forward. It's not going to have a lot of the peppery notes, especially compared to like some of the stuff that we've had over the first couple of shows. Like you're not going to get a lot of that burn and that, again, just more of that black pepper type of finish. There's really no rye in here. So a lot of the bitter notes and a lot of the heat that you're getting is because this guy's bottled at 90 proof rather than getting down there in like the 84, 86 that like for last time we were together, for instance, like the Old Forester 86 versus 100, like the amount of heat is massively different between just that few degrees. So yeah, if you're looking for something, this would rival for me Buffalo Trace, which is what we did on the first show, kind of a similar flavor profile, but this one, because it's a little hotter, does hold up a little better. So
yeah, Buffalo Trace is great, but Maker's Mark is just one of those ones that if you're looking for a good, relatively inexpensive go-to bourbon, I mean, even before this show, I would have told you that that's what you should go for, because it's just, I mean, literally my Christmas gift from Jen's parents for probably the first 12 years we were together was a handle of Maker's Mark.
It's a big bottle.
And then also for my birthday too, they give me a bottle of Maker's Mark. So
yeah, I'm never going to turn down a bottle of Maker's ever.
Nope. Not ever. Nope.
No, I sold it for a very long time. I don't anymore. It's one of the brands that I miss, but I still will drink it. It's just so damn good.
So good. Well, and it makes a good old fashioned too.
Yeah, it totally does. And like I'm going back to my point, like that's especially like the 46 variety for me is every bit as good as any old fashioned that I think
Right.
I've had.
Right.
So I drink the hell out of those.
Awesome,
So
man.
yeah, so
So we also have a golf tournament this week.
yeah, I heard something about that.
Yeah, I think I heard you know something about golf.
I know a few things. I know a few things. Yeah, so this week was a little tricky for me as I was going through it, but we'll get into it. There's a lot of people I like, and there's a lot of problems at the very bottom of the salary range here. So, anyways, this week's tournament is the Wells Fargo. It's at Quail Hollow. We're looking at par 71, about 7,500 yards, give or take. Nate said earlier we're in Charlotte, North Carolina. Gonna have Bermuda grass again. It is going to be overseeded though with, I believe it's Poana. So a couple of shows ago we talked about Poana a little bit. When it kind of changes throughout the day, and it can be a little problematic when you're putting. Now it's an overseed, so I don't think it's going to be as prevalent and cause as many headaches, but it definitely can change throughout the day.
Okay.
Weather's a little hard to predict this early in the week. It looked to me like it was going to be pretty okay. So I'm not too worried about like trying to do a tee time stack or any of that stuff with our lineups. Gotcha. And on top of that, once we get into the pricing a little bit, it's going to be really challenging to build a lineup. So I think it's just one of those weeks where you don't get too cute, like play the good plays and eat some chalk here and there.
Gotcha.
Play it smart. Yeah. And I think, I think there's certain weeks where you can get an edge by doing something off the wall. There's other weeks where you really just got to try and find the best balance that you can. And I think this week is going to be one of those for me. So a couple of things to point out with this one. If anybody's looking at course history, the 2017 Wells Fargo was not played at this course.
Okay. Good to know.
Only kind of matters on a couple of guys, but Brian Harmon is the guy that won the 2017 one, and he is priced way up. He's a past champion. I don't see a real reason why he's priced where he is. And I think
it's not the same course,
but I think it's a little bit of a DraftKings trap, because I think that not everybody is going to know that this is not the same course.
Totally.
Kind of like John Rahm, who I actually do like this week, but his only history here was from 2017. So he has no course history on the actual course.
Gotcha.
But it's John Rahm. That's Brian Harmon.
Right.
So, right. So that's probably an important call out. The things I was looking at this week primarily, I actually kind of changed my approach this week. Last week, I was a lot more focused on approach game and kind of accuracy. This week, I'm a little more focused on kind of good drives, a little bit better distance, specifically like how they score on par fives, how they score on par fours. I kind of looked at the course, and it looks like that kind of key distance for a par four scoring set is going to be about 450 to 500. You're going to have some a little shorter, some maybe a little bit longer, depending on where the tees are, but that gives us a good idea.
Gotcha.
I also looked at approach, and I look at approach virtually every week. These greens are definitely a little bit smaller, but the rough and the surrounding don't seem to be as penal. So that's another reason why I didn't focus so much on accuracy as much as like people that are good from tee to green, like in just getting there and being consistent. But greens in regulation gained, I did look at that stat just to see if I was going to have guys that were going to have to be getting up and down, or if I was going to have guys that were rating out for being a little more accurate and hitting the green and reg. So that's kind of the key stats I was looking at. There's a few other things that I baked in, obviously just trying different stuff, but that's kind of what I stuck with. So yeah, so
it's interesting. And this, I had never thought about until you and I started talking about golf, how much the type of grass can affect your pick. Like that's crazy.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you have to think about, it's almost like a regional type of thing. Like if you grew up only playing on one type of grass in That's how you're used to seeing the ball roll out. That's how you're used to knowing this course will be dried out by 1 p.m. or whatever the situation might be. And then you go to, say, the West Coast, and it's completely different situation, completely different conditions.
Right.
And not to say these guys are, we talk about this all the time. These guys are world-class players that have played all over the place. So I don't want to oversell the importance of familiarity with where you're playing, but it does matter. I mean, you know, reading greens in particular is the few times I've been down and played in the Southeast, like reading a green down there versus reading a green in, you know, the Midwest where I live, or, you know, even out like in Denver, or I played in California, like it is different and how you look at it and how you see it.
Oh, that makes sense. Climate differences and totally. Yeah, I get that.
And the grain of the grass, how it lays. And
right.
I mean, there's a lot of things there. But again, it's one of those things that I like have awareness of, but I mean, when I say I look at it, I mean, if I had to put a number on it, it's maybe 5% of what I look at in terms of how I build a model. And Fantasy National really like is so good about it, like how you can actually like sort by the graphs you want, by how many rounds you want, by what year, by what course type. I mean, there's just so many things that you can build into your modeling to allow you to just like, I want to know what putting on Bermuda on a Pete Dye course looks like for this guy, 5% value on it, you know, just to have it in the model.
Right. Well, I think that's something everybody should understand too. Like, you're building these whole models with all of these things plugged into one thing, and they're weighted. So
yeah, absolutely. So I'll go through every week and I'll just look at, much like a lot of people in the industry do, we'll look at how many key stats we think we need to target. We'll put them all into a bucket, and then you go through. And then for me, like, I can tell you, I weighted approach heavier than I weighed almost anything else. Tee to green was a close second. But then my other stats are all, you know, fractional values, just to kind of try and round out what I think the prototypical guy would look like. And then it spits out a result. And I'm stubborn. I choose not to trust it all the time, but if I did listen, probably do all right most of the time. I do really fun things like play Rory McIlroy every week.
Well, but it's Rory McIlroy, like, and you're gonna have your guy. Everybody has their guy, even in like DFS football. Everybody has their guy. Like, that's fair.
I think everybody's guy is Christian McCaffrey. Just play him.
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, if you can fit them, fit them both in.
Right.
So so moving into kind of what I was looking at for picks. So this week, I'm kind of torn. So number one in my model is Corey Connors. I think Corey Connors is playing out of his head good right now. I think some big things are coming for him. I think he took a little step back last week, and I don't think the stats have caught up quite yet. And I can definitely say the pricing hasn't, like, because Corey Connors is sitting at $9,200. At $9,200, we're essentially saying Corey Connors has got a T3 or better, and he's got to score at least 100 DraftKings points. Really, I mean, at that amount of value, and I'm basing that the statement I just made on the rest of the pricing structure. If I pay $9,200 for Corey Connors, I'm going to have a hell of a time stacking another 9,000 guy, 8,000 guy, and so on.
Right.
And that kind of does segue into my Jon Rahm take. So Jon Rahm in my model is number 2. He's sitting at $10,800 this week. He is in the top 10 for every stat metric I looked at. I think that I liked what I saw at the Masters, especially on Sunday. I think he's had a couple weeks now to kind of get situated with the baby and the home life and all that.
Right.
And I just think he's going to come out firing this week, and he's already a world-class player. So I just, if you're going to pay up, I feel more confident about Jon Rahm at 10-8 than I do any other person in that tier. Like, I think Justin Thomas could show up, or he could have a dead putter, and I'm not going to pay to find out. And I think that, Bryson DeChambeau's up there at 11,000. He may or may not show up and figure out how to hit his club straight. He may be all over the map. I'm not going to pay to find out. Xander Schauffele at 10-5 might be another guy that I would actually look at just from a consistency standpoint. He's been playing pretty damn well. I mean, there's not a whole lot of holes you can poke in his game right now. Probably the two that are the most challenging in this range, and I told you I was going to talk about Rory. I'll talk about Webb Simpson first. Webb Simpson at 10-2. I just don't really see it. I love Webb Simpson. I'll play him most weeks. I think he's a very consistent player. I think he's a good ball striker. I think all those things. But he has very middling stats for the last 36 rounds in terms of how he lines up for what I'm projecting. And I just don't know if he can keep up. Like he's not a short hitter, but he's not a long hitter.
Right.
He's got to come out and be twice as accurate as the rest of the field to compete. Is kind of what I'm thinking on him. And then my boy Rory at 10,000. So there's a couple of things with Rory. Rory has probably, arguably, I'm pulling it up right now, the best course history here out of anybody. I mean, he just tears this place apart. So 2015, he won it. 2016, he was T4. 2017, when it wasn't at this course, he skipped it. 2018, he was T16. 2019, he was T8. So
wow,
of the 4 times he's played this course, he's been T16 or better. And at 10,000, I don't need him necessarily to win, because the thing we all know about Rory is as long as he makes the cut, he's going to score DraftKings points. He'll be over 100 without flinching. Right. So I really kind of like him this week, and I really, really like where his ownership is coming in at. Last I checked it, I think he's sub 14% right now, sub 10% right now.
Wow.
So, you know, I think he has every bit of the opportunity that everybody else at the top does to win. And, you know, paying down and getting the ownership leverage, I think that's a good play. So if you want to gamble this week, Rory would be my pick for throwing a bullet.
But it's it's a safe bullet.
It's a pseudo safe bullet. We're assuming that Rory has actually been practicing on his game.
No, that's true.
We're assuming.
Fair enough.
I'm trying to shoot. Can you hear my dog?
Yes, I can.
Norman, hold on. Norman, get out of here. Go. I've been trying to shoo him while talking to you because he's got a brand new bone. He's just sitting here. So there you go. There's real life, people.
It's what we do with In Between Media.
He's a cute dog. I normally sit on the bar stool next to me, but
I can confirm it's a cute dog.
So I kind of moving down the chain a little bit. A couple of guys I wanted to point out. Will Zalatoris, and we all know that I'm hot on Will Zalatoris, and so is the rest of the planet now. I really wish that Will Zalatoris would have hit 4 weeks ago when I first started calling him out and nobody was on him. But it is what it is. So at $9,400, I think he's another guy that you can definitely look at starting your lineup with and going with a little more of a balanced build. He is trending like no other. He is in the top 20 in almost every stat model, or every stat that I looked at. He's number 5 in approach. He's number 10 in tee to green, number 6 in greens and regulation. And one of the stats I did look at kind of heavily was scoring on par 5s, and he's number 7 in the field in that. So I think that Zalatoris has got the chops to win. And if you listen to an interview with this kid, it's all he wants to do is win. You know, he's embracing this Happy Gilmore's caddy thing, and
he does like when I first saw the picture, I was like, oh, no way.
He looks just like him.
He does, but then like you do the age thing, and obviously not. But yeah,
and I just
crazy.
love that he's got the. I love that he's got the Happy Gilmore quotes on his wedges too. That's just class act.
No, that's awesome.
So he'd be one up there in that kind of mid upper 9 that I would look at. Moving down into your 8K area, I really, really like Abraham Answer. Very accurate, not the longest guy, but he just strikes the ball well. And one of these weekends, he's going to put it together. And I know he's going to be popular, but I think he's going to be a little less popular than the next guy that I like, which is Joaquin Niemann. And we know I'm on him all the time. I read him up almost every week. I just love the guy's game. He's good off the tee. He's accurate. He can play in wind. He can play in calm. It doesn't matter the grass type. Like, he just shows up. And I think I'm looking at the stats. Him and Abraham Answer neck and neck, but it seems like the industry is a little more on Neiman. So Answer, though it's not going to be a massive pivot, it may give some leverage there. And we'll know more getting later in the week as we're able to see what those numbers are rounding out at.
Right.
Let's see, getting down the chain a little bit. Who else do I like? My oddball one this week's probably Bubba Watson at 8,300. I just like what Bubba's been doing, and going back to the par 5 scoring piece, like, Bubba can score when he needs to. He's long. And even though he's got an unorthodox way of getting there, he's relatively accurate. So I think that's kind of an interesting play. The chalk in that area seems to be Shane Lowry, and I know I've talked about Shane Lowry before, and I almost panicked last time I talked about him because I was like, oh, fade Shane Lowry. There's no way he's going to do anything. I think he came out and he was like tied for first round lead or something. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And then I don't know what he ended up finishing in that tournament. Probably T800. I mean, he fell off a cliff, but yeah, that was the last time I said anything about Shane Lowry, so I'm a little concerned about saying it. But he is kind of getting some buzz. I don't really know why. I mean, Shane Lowry is one of those guys that could just pop, but I think for me, I'm gonna kind of stay away from him and probably do more of the Bubba Watson route and just trust what I'm seeing in Bubba and hope Bubba's got good vibes that week. Getting down into the 7K range. I'm really kind of going to go back to Matt Neesmith again. This is a guy that, like I was saying, I'm going to trust my stats on him. I built the model spit him out. He's number 13th overall. He's at $7,300. He's number 1 in greens and regulations over the last 36 rounds. He's number 2 in good drives gained over the last 36 rounds. Number 6 in approach. Number 17 in tee to green. Number 11 in par 5 scoring. I mean, when the numbers are telling me to play somebody, there are some guys that I have to trust. Now, he burnt me a few weeks ago, so I'm timid.
Well, your metrics can only tell you so much. I mean, it's like fantasy football. Like, a guy might look great on paper, but it doesn't translate that week or whatever week to him actually doing something for you. I mean, I'd imagine you're doing everything you can building these models, and you know what you're doing. And, we're all wrong sometimes. Sometimes.
I wish it was sometimes. No, hey, man, I mean, on him in particular, my eyes tell me a story on him too. Like, I do think he's gonna really start to find his own. I think he's gonna be a good player. I don't know if he's there yet. Maybe I'm going to be a little early on it, but I'm looking for things that can save me some money, so that I can get guys like Rory McIlroy into my lineup, because God knows that should be a priority.
Of course.
But that price range is kind of what I'm looking at, like that upper 9 to lower 10 range. Like, how do I get those guys into my lineup? Because I do think that they're priced there for a reason. I do think they're going to win. So this is where it gets interesting for me. And I'm just going to tell you straight up, these are all dart throws down here. Like, once I got sub 7,000, there was not a single guy in here that I felt great about, but you're more than likely going to have to play one, at least in 1 or 2 of your lineups. So the guys that I looked at were Roger Sloane. The things I liked about him, he does have a good greens and regulation gained metric. So that's solid. He is in the lower 5th of the field for good drives gained. So that's also a good sign. And the rest of his stuff is really middling, but again, he's down there at 6,400. So I think that could be a guy that could at least make the cut for you, give you some salary relief. Cam Percy is another guy down at 6,300. So he's a little bit higher in the metrics, but number 5 in greens and regulation gained, number 1 in good drives gained. So those 2 stats alone over 36 rounds, now I didn't dig deep to see exactly how many rounds versus the rest of the field or how many cuts or any of that stuff, but I'll still take that stat. Like, that to me says that he can at least do those 2 things with some consistency. And that's all we really need from $6,300.
Right.
And then James Hahn is the last guy I'll mention. So James Hahn may end up being a little popular. He has won this tournament before. I believe it was 2018, if I remember. Nope, 2016. Yeah, 2016 is what year he won the tournament. So he has won here. He is another guy that I have played from time to time. He does hit the ball fairly consistently. He does find the fairway quite often. Greens and regulation is so, but he does score well from that key par 4 distance that we talked about with the 450 to 500 yard range. So he could be a little bit of a sleeper down below, even though he's got that tournament history. A lot of the buzz that I'm hearing around is people trying to build balanced, and this would be a play that you're going a little more top heavy, a little more stars and scrubs. So,
if you can afford to do it, do it.
Well, and I think, I think with those three guys, like, I don't know which one it's going to be, but I definitely think at least one of them is going to make the cut. And if I can build enough lineups and incorporate them in the right ways, I get that 6-6 lineup through. I mean, I don't necessarily care what they do at that point, as long as they score something over the weekend,
right.
As long as I'm not taking a
put
zero.
You in the money. Yeah, put you in the money somewhere.
Exactly. So those are probably the three that I'm going to roll out. I've heard stuff all over the world about what people are trying to do, and I've got some other guys in my player pool too. But like those seem to be the three that I keep falling back to. And then my no reason at all really play of the week is Harold Varner III. I just kind of
I love that name. I don't know why.
HB3. So he actually, the last few times I watched him play, I actually have a good vibe about him. Like I think he's getting there. His stats, at least in my model, do not really say play him at all. But I do think that that's somebody that you could throw in a lineup, and I do think he'll make the cut. I mean, and I think he could win in the next, maybe even month. Like he really has been striking the ball better. So that's just kind of my oddball one. Patrick Reed is in my player pool. He will be no matter
every
what.
week.
Yep. Every week. Because Reed doesn't know. Reed has no form. Reed just shows up and wins.
He's like a new John Daly.
Yeah.
Kind of to me, with less bad habits, but the same mouth.
Let's get him some cigs and some beers and just send him out.
Was John Daly, I think, was one of the most fun golfers to actually watch play. I actually got to see him in person at remember the International?
Yeah.
With the weird scoring. Is the weirdest scoring where it was a point system. So you got
Stableford.
The Stableford scoring system. It was 3 points for an eagle, 2 points for a birdie, no points for a par, and negative when you get into the bogeys.
I'm going to be embarrassed right now because I've been playing golf forever and I've not a clue how that system works. Not a clue.
I only remember because I got to go a couple of times, but I saw Greg Norman get so frustrated that he threw his putter and picked up his ball on the 17th green because he had gone.
Many things I want to say about Greg Norman right now.
There's so many things I think a lot of people want to say about Greg Norman.
You've seen the viral picture, right?
No, I haven't actually. I'll have to look it up.
I'll send it to you later.
All right.
John Daly though, that'd be so cool to see him. I've never seen him in person, but I hear he's just a trip, man.
He's definitely larger than life, man. For real. So many of those guys. To be fair, when I went, I think Phil Mickelson still hadn't won a major. Jose Maria Olazabal had won the Masters the year before. Tiger Woods wasn't even a thought. I think he was probably still in high school back then.
Well, we have a PGA Champions event literally 2 blocks from where I live. So
wow.
Sponsored by Sanford International. And Daly was supposed to play it the inaugural year, and he showed up. And the story that I heard was they wouldn't give him a golf cart, so he threw some choice phrases at them and said he'd be at the casino.
So I believe it, man. But I've never seen someone hit a ball that hard in my life. His drive, we're talking he almost drove the green on that 17th, and that's a par 5. It's one of the shortest par. It was one of the shortest par 5s on the PGA Tour, and it was I saw the old school Steve Lowry with the tall putter. that he ran off his chin. I saw him eagle it. I saw
that's the kind of putter you use.
Yeah, but I don't go all the way up to my chin. I'll have to show it to you sometime. It's legal. I just have the weirdest putting swing, but it works for me, man. I don't often take more than 2 putts to get off the green. So
good on you, because I routinely do nowadays.
Oh, well, I haven't played in 4 years, so we'll see how I do now.
Yeah, bring your wallet, buddy. Let's go.
Well, all right, guys. I think that about wraps it up for us tonight. I want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in to watch us taste some Maker's Mark and talk about some DFS golf. Connor?
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for having a cocktail with us. I will be live from South Carolina next time we do this. I was supposed to see the PGA Championship, but they canceled our tickets, so we're still going to South Carolina. But,
oh man, what a bummer!
Won't be on the course, so I'll have a nice tropical patio behind me. So
awesome! Look forward to it. All right, guys.
See everybody in a couple weeks.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.